You have to be so good at what you do. You have to be putting so much good in the world. It just squeezes out the alternative.
What you need to be doing or what you're capable of isn't something that I can give you.
You got to show up and play all out.
Success? Success is...
Well, guys, I'm excited about this. First off, thanks for having us. This is an exciting time, and I think everybody's enjoyed it. I want to start off by talking about y'all's partnership, though. Tell me the story. How did this get going?
The funeral home or beehives? Where should we start?
Well, I'll start with, okay, so Mike was already in the process of writing a book at the time. I did not know Mike. He did not know me. I was separately working in the space of small business owners, helping them with efficiency. And my background is in Lean Six Sigma. And Mike had mentioned to a friend, he's like, he was writing a book about small business efficiency. He's like, I'm looking for someone who does like Lean Six Sigma, but for small business owners. And we had a mutual friend, his name is Chris Winfield. And he was like, you need to meet Adrian. And so like one of my friends, Todd Herman, he always says like business moves at the speed of relationships. And that's kind of, like, oh, he knew me, Mike, it was the right connection at the right time. And so he gave Mike my phone number, and I think it was supposed to be like one interview. You were at a funeral.
Yeah.
In the parking lot.
Was it? Yes.
And then he kept calling me and texting me and like, hey, can you review this? Or like, does this make sense in this context? And then one day he sent me an email and he's like, I have an idea. It's like really out in left field. And I knew what he was going to ask me because I understood the model of profit first. Okay, so profit first, the way that it is run is like there is Mike who writes the book, and then there is a business behind that where they deliver services. And I was like, I feel like I should be the service girl for Clockwork, which that doesn't sound great, but like
Sounds perfect.
Like I know that like
even I didn't hear that.
Okay. Like I know that Mike shouldn't be delivering services to clients. And especially after we had had so many conversations, I felt like a lot of my intellectual property was now in the book. And I'm like, well, I should help with this. And so when he said, I have an idea, it's crazy out in left field, I kind of knew. And he asked me if I wanted to run the company side of the business model. I think you have like a unique model for how you set up your businesses.
Yeah. So as an author, I don't consider myself a creator of ideas, but a curator of ideas. So for every one of my books, what I do is I interview people, and every so often you find someone who just knows it inside and out. So the funeral story was interview 2 or 3. I had questions, and I'm like, I think it connects to like beehives. I've been doing some research, and bees seem to build these great, efficient organizations. She's like, oh, I'm a former beekeeper. Actually, I studied apiary work or whatever, aviary, whatever it's called.
I studied like wildlife conservation, and one of the classes I took, was
like,
advanced beekeeping.
Beekeeping. So she starts saying, yeah, here's the parallels, and here's the links. I'm like, oh my God. I find the smartest people are so confident what they know is that they openly share to educate, where the people that are kind of a step down try to preserve it so that they maintain authority. But the real authorities give everything. The entire book is her ideas. It's not my ideas. And there's other compliments and stuff, but it's Adrian's framework. So I came back to Adrian and said, well, basically you are the book. Not the words, but I said, would you want to then do this? And the book immediately becomes a marketing arm. And so my responsibility is to educate entrepreneurs and to inspire entrepreneurs to consume this, but also recognizing that the majority of people who read a book won't do it. They're going to read it, say, this was great. What's the next book? And that book goes on the shelf. They're going to need help doing it. And Adrian said, yeah.
What's up, guys? I want to take just a moment here. Thank you so much for tuning in, but I want to invite you to the Scale with Stability Conference, the conference of 2025. If you're looking to scale and grow your business, we'll be talking about lead generation, AI, systems, processes, automation. How do we tie this together in a whole new world that we live in? Guys, if you are interested in coming, hit that link below and join me, Damon John, Willie and Corey Robertson, Dr. Gary Chapman, Kevin Harrington, Jim Johnson, Jonathan Mask, and the list goes on at the Scale with Stability Summit. I look forward to seeing you there.
I'd like to do it.
So you go into this, you're already, before you even get started, you're thinking partnerships. Who am I going to work with on these different partners?
I am.
And then you mentioned to us all just a few minutes ago about your hiring process,
Yeah.
right? Of like interviews.
I did say $10 an hour. She's like, are you crazy?
Are you nuts?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I own the entire business. How's that sound like?
And so you're going out and just I mean, every business can do this. I mean, if I'm in marketing, you're going out and researching people, learning as much as you possibly can. But in the back of your mind, you're always thinking partnerships, strategic relationships,
Always.
Something to this nature.
Always. And it's in this room too. And I hope we're all kind of sniffing that out because it's 1 + 1 = 11. And Adrian has such extraordinary talent in making it deliverable, like bring together a group like us for you to do this extraordinary thing of coming here that's so atypical, but you're growing from it. That's not my capability. But I can get excited and get some energy going for about 30 minutes and hype things up. And so that's my talent. I go out, I write books, I'll do a hype speech to get people excited and I believe in it, but then I'm not talented at sustaining it. Adrian is. So yeah, 1 + 1 = 11. So we got to look for it.
Was there ever a moment where you tried to almost change who you were to try to cover that position versus hiring someone? I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs where, man, I'm the visionary, but I have to be the executor right now. I have to be the tactician. And it's hard. It fails in so many ways.
Absolutely try to fake it till I make it. Never made it. Just tried to put that on. And it comes across flat. It's like, I don't know. I was trying to think of an analogy. I can't think of one. But people receive it poorly because I'm delivering it poorly. It's not authentic me. I remember someone saying, like, if you do 20% of your time, you do what you really love to do, the other 80% you can get through. Yeah. And I believe that. And now I believe if you're doing 80% of what you love to do, you'll start excelling and become exceptional at it.
I think like what's interesting, and maybe this evolved for you, but like when you wrote Profit First, you didn't understand that people were going to want the delivery piece, right? Like you thought you wrote that book and gave everybody all the answers. And then when they started asking more questions or saying like, can you actually help me implement this? You were like, well, no, like I didn't want to do that. And so that business kind of, you reverse set that up the way that you now forwardly set these businesses up, right? So that kind of influenced. But in that business, you were more of a partner and like doing maybe a lot more of the things because you set that up differently than now these future book partnerships, right? So like the Profit First business, you revised that book so that then you could have the business on the back end. But he's like more of a partner in that business. And so I think it does require more of you, which you've seen over the years is like not your best move, right? And so then intentionally going forward, that's not how I want to build the next thing because it takes too much of me and it takes too much of the resources that I actually am not best at delivering. And so like the way that you have your model set up, I think is really unique to the small business space. Like I don't think anyone else is doing what you're doing in terms of his ideal avatar is in the middle, right? And he's writing these books that solve all of their problems, right? And then from that book, he's looking for a partner that can deliver those services. Yes. Right? So these are different partners within their expertise. That's right. And I just don't think people have that like 1 + 1 = 11 mindset a lot of times in the small business space. And they're looking for like me, even the partner, because I've even had people come to me, colleagues who are looking to do something similar to you. And they're like, how do I find an Adrian? Like, how do I find that person? I'm like, honestly, it's hard, right? Because a lot of people don't want to give up what they had. I had a very successful business prior to joining forces with Mike. Like I could have kept doing what I was doing, but I realized, and I never had this on my goals list of like partner with someone and like have a different brand. I didn't even know Mike, but when the partnership came along and the opportunity came along, I was like, okay, this is I would not do this if it was a 1 + 1 = 2. Like this has to be a 1 + 1 = 11. It has to be a very unique person. It has to be, we both have a very clear mission of who we serve and like what our values are. And those are very aligned. And if we really want to serve more people and impact more people, we can do that better together. And you have to really put the ego aside, right? Like, because it's not just about me anymore. Like I don't get a lot of credit for the ideas in that book and you have to be okay with that, right? And I don't think that there's a lot of people that are from this side, like being visionary enough to say, like, who could be a strategic partner for me that I could approach and be like, Mike's always coming to me and he's like, are you happy? Like, what else can I do? Like trying to maintain that partnership to make sure that we're both, because he knows I could go out and do something on my own. I have before. And so that like we are a symbiotic relationship and we have to maintain being a symbiotic relationship. And that's hard sometimes, you know?
I have a question on that because I think like that's one of the hardest things that you find when it comes to partnerships. Not only finding the ideal partner for you, because that requires obviously kind of like the opposite of your skill set, but how do you, through the storms that you're going to face in business, obviously this hasn't been a fairy tale every single minute of the life. Maybe it is, maybe it hasn't, but how do you go back to that point of like, okay, like the mission, the vision, how do you stay mindful of that when you have disagreements maybe, or you go through things where you are not seeing the same thing?
So for me, I think it starts with like having shared core values. Like I think that Mike and I, like I know his character. I know what he cares about, what he believes in, and I know he's really genuine, you know? So even if he's, you know, not doing exactly what I want him to do, I know whatever he's doing is coming from a good place. It's not malicious, even if I'm feeling like he's not giving me enough attention, or this isn't happening the way that I wanted, or I would love for this to go differently. Like I always know, and I'm always giving him the benefit of the doubt, right? Whereas I think a lot of times when you're in a partnership, whether it's romantic or, you know, friendships or business partnerships, like we're quick to be like, it's coming from a bad place, where it's like, actually give that person the benefit of the doubt. Like, you know, their character, you know, what they're really trying to do. And maybe they're just unclear. The second thing for me is like really direct communication. Like if I'm unhappy with something, or if I don't like if I have something that I need to talk about, I will directly talk to Mike about it. And I think people avoid those conversations and then it just festers. Whereas I can go to him and he's like, tell me what's going on. Like what, you know, and then he listens and we try to work through things. I will say we haven't had like a super tumultuous, volatile relationship, but I think it's because when something comes up, I'm like, hey, let's talk about this. And you're always like, hey, yeah, let's see how we can fix it, see how we can address it, or see how we can do better together. Like, how can I be of service? And so I think talking about those things really directly is super key for me, because otherwise you would just become resentful.
Agreed. So it's back to kind of the original kind of questions. It's like a band. I have the privilege of having the microphone to sing, and she's playing drums. But the most important member in the band is the drummer. They keep time. They keep all the music going, but all the accolades go to the singer. So you have to realize that the audience likes the music, but the front person's getting it. But the moment that I was like, this is a great partnership, was one that I think was the most difficult call, was when George Floyd was murdered. And I had not made a public statement. Some people were, because I really didn't know what to say. And Adrian called me and said, I think you need to make a public statement, but I also need to know where you stand, because this is defining our character. And so we had a long, deep call about our values around not just that, but just our values in general. And we were synchronized. It also inspired me to make a statement about George Floyd and the murder, and to pursue training in DEI and going through and still deploying that, still work with Trudy today, or still communicate with her about some concepts. And it improved my company tremendously. She was the only relationship I had in business that came forward and said, here's something that you have to do, or you can do, and it'll serve both of us. And I was so honored by that.
Like, and if you don't do it, I'm having
questions about, yeah.
want to go in terms of partnership.
Yeah, and I learned
in alignment, you know, like we have to be aligned on our values, and you're not making a statement, so I don't know what your values are.
Exactly. I thought it was very powerful. I think it's interesting. There's a difference between confidence and courage. And I thought, we have confidence. And then I realized, oh my gosh, many of us don't have confidence. That's the perception from the outside. It's courage. It's like, God, the courage she had to say that, because she was willing to have a conversation that could have resulted in we got to depart ways or strengthen. And I think that became the strongest relationship from that point forward. And I'm eternally grateful for it, because my own awareness, my own growth expanded because of that. And you were the only friend who called me out and said, what's your statement? What's your position? So thank you.
You're welcome.
And that makes a much more powerful relationship, right? One of the things I heard, I just want to hone into it a little bit, is when you're in I'll call it a marriage, where you're so vulnerable, knowing that people have the option to leave. And you create that vulnerability, and even through that, they stay. That builds a better relationship. But so many of us are not willing to talk about our weaknesses or frustrations or anger. We're not willing to go to marriage counseling because we're afraid of what it might do. And so the more open and honest you can with that communication, the easier it is to build a relationship and create something much stronger.
I don't know what the stat is, but most business partnerships also end in divorce.
Of course.
Right? And the litigation's there and all these problems.
It's difficult.
And I've had 2 businesses where I've left because I didn't get along with the partners. The only common denominator was me in those 2 businesses. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe.
But it serve you to build, I was wondering like where this communication and this idea, because I feel like it only happens after you go through pain,
Yeah. So one of the most important things I do now that serves that is regular conversation. So Adrian and I have it. In any business I'm involved in, there's a regular communication. And even if the conversation's about nothing, it's just to talk. And what's so interesting, you start learning each other's backgrounds and stories. So I know more about Adrian over the years, about her background, her experiences. And you start seeing the whole person, and you understand where their heart is, like, as you were sharing. So I know exactly what Adrian wants to do, I think, and how she wants to serve the community and how she shows up. And now I'm a fan and want to support that and encourage it. And it just becomes a great motivator to have those conversations.
Going one step, how many people are really interested in partnerships? A couple of people? All right. Slowly raising their hands. Okay, perfect.
Do you have partners if you raise your hand? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's why you're interested. Okay.
Does everybody have perfect relationships with their partners?
Yeah.
Just you?
Just
Okay.
you.
You want to get up here and just response here? These things are really intriguing because, again, if you really want to grow and scale, understanding how partnerships work, how to develop. And I love what you said in the beginning. I think there's something there slight like of again, the research deal. You're going slow in that relationship. You're getting to know, you're figuring out. I mean, it's like dating, like you're barely, and then you're pulling the question later on of maybe there's something here. Maybe we can 1 + 1 = 11. So
Yeah,
that's really good.
And I think the outside surface, we see someone's knowledge and ability.
Yes.
And so that can be very appealing when there's a compliment. But inside that ultimately is the heart. Where's their North Star and where they're headed?
Yes.
And that's easy to ask. It's hard to discover. We can all say, I'm out to serve the world. But there's stories behind that. There's experiences. And the North Star comes out when you start learning of the traumatic experiences someone's gone through life and how that's directing them, the wins and particularly the losses they've had in life. And that only comes out over time and, in active dialogue. And it comes out, you'll be sitting out there at the lake or on the big swing, and all of a sudden playing basketball. Yeah, we were playing horse. And you just start hearing these stories. I'm walking with Emily and we're going to the big swing, and she's like, oh, I used to be a pastry chef. I'm like, what? Like, the world doesn't know this? I'm like, we're baking tonight. But you just start hearing these stories, and it's like, oh, and then you start pinning stuff together. Like, oh, now I kind of get more about that person. That just comes out of active conversations, seeking them out, not just letting them happen.
All right, partnerships is fun. Let's move on to team here a little bit. One of the things that I've struggled with, and I was talking to a couple of people here that I felt had done the same thing. When you're small, I can only afford a certain level of team member. You talked about $10 team members, right? And then but sometimes, as the business grows, now I can afford someone better, right? And maybe this person hasn't grown to the level of what I need. Beforehand I could afford a $300 accounting firm. Now I can afford a $2,000 accounting firm, whatever the case may be. How have you dealt, or what's your suggestion with individuals? Man, I built a relationship with this person. I love this person. This is a great human being. But they're just not, I could get someone better.
Yeah.
I can afford someone better.
Yeah.
But I don't need two.
Which is really hard because there's obviously this like link and they have grown with you.
Sure.
But there's a point where sometimes those positions
The company's
get stuck,
outgrown
right?
them
It's
almost.
yeah.
I mean, I think that this, to go back to Mike's word of courage, like I think as business owners, there are times when you have to look at what you're creating and decide if you have the right team to build that. Like I was talking earlier with someone, and the idea, like if we want to have simplicity, like we all want to go from like complex to simple, right? And we think that it's like going from 10 to 1. That's how we get there. this is where we're at, and let's like remove things to get to simple. But the ideal is actually to go from 0 to 1, right? So like, what would you build if you could start from scratch? And does it utilize what you currently have? And if not, then maybe we need to make some hard decisions. And we can still love people and let them go with love and kindness. Like I always think about offboarding people the same way that I onboard them. Like they're going to feel the same love and kindness and appreciation. Just sometimes it actually is better for them too to move on, right? Because they can't spread their wings here. I'm a really big fan of like growing talent internally too. Like I like to bring in people that I think they have like really good core competencies or strengths, even if they don't have any of the skill sets that I need, and then growing to help see their potential. But that requires time and energy and mentorship and leadership and patience. And sometimes people don't want to do that. But then you have to understand the trade-off, right? So I think you have to understand what your skill sets are and what you really want, like how you want to spend your time with your team. But sometimes running a team and running a business and like why we get to have, some of the big wins that we get as entrepreneurs also means you got to take the lows and take the hard stuff with it. And that might mean like making hard decisions or transitioning out of something to transition into something different. And it doesn't mean that it's better. It just might mean like, this is what we need next and we're evolving. And you also need to evolve. I've had team members over the years where I was like, I'm holding you back, right? Like you're staying here because you like me, but like what you need to be doing or what you're capable of isn't something that I can give you. And I've had previous team members who like, I had to like push them because they weren't going to go on their own. And they built like incredible SaaS company. Like one of my previous employees, her name is Erin Kelly. She runs a company called Member Vault now. Well, Member Vault was created for me when she worked as like my assistant, and her husband built it for us. And then at a certain point, she was like, I think we could like sell this to people. Like, I think we could actually create a SaaS company. And I was like, cool. So she started, like, we were user number 1, and then she turned it into something else. And then at a certain point I was like, you can't work for me anymore. Yeah. Like, I love you. And I know that like you would do this for the rest of your life, but like you have bigger fish to fry right now. And so do I, like, cause you can't give me what I need anymore, but like, you got to go build that. And now they're a multi-million-dollar SaaS company and they're doing incredible things. And like, that wouldn't have happened if we both held on to something just because we liked it or it was comfortable, So that's my 2 cents. That was actually 40 cents. Most long-winded efficiency expert.
It's funny. I just think about we're Camp Wickety Whack today. And imagine just one of us here, and the folks the campers that usually come here, I assume teens or younger, right? Yeah. You would be the weirdo. Like, who's the creep walking around? Well, at college, there was a dude who was in our college for over 8 years. So he was like, yeah, exactly. There was this weird guy, like, his name was Carl. It was me. His name was Mike Michalowicz. Oh my God. His name was Carl. And he would Carl would come to the fraternity house and was like, who's this dude? It's so weird. And he needed to graduate. And he didn't. And I think that's what happens with businesses is we have an employee that it's become weird. So we don't lay off people. We call it graduation. And we have a wall at our office we call it the alumni wall. So it's just a reframing of it. And we say, listen, you have outgrown our organization and our ability to use you. You've learned everything in our classes. It's graduation time. And it doesn't make it easy. And people don't necessarily celebrate, but we're like, we'd be honored for you to be an alumni. And what we do is we invite our employees back. We have an annual retreat. If you're an alumni, you're invited to come back. And we've had people come back on their own dime, their own accord, just to participate for a 3-day retreat and be there. But also, maybe selfishly for me, it's way easier to graduate someone than it is to fire someone.
Yes.
So, and I feel it's of service to them. It's like, oh, we're freeing you up. And it does happen. They go to the world. So let me give you a mass graduation we had to have. Mass graduation. I was mismanaging my organization, a prior one, and we just did not have the financials to support the folks there. I had 30 people. I had to let go of 8 or 9 people. So it was a quick graduation ceremony. I followed every single person up to today. One person left, her name was Carol, to go and live her dream, which was to navigate the world by sailboat with her husband. And they went to all these different countries and did it. Gail wanted to become a lawyer. I'm sorry, a judge. She was a lawyer. She was in-house counsel. She went on to be a judge, and she just retired as a judge about 6 months ago. And the only person besides family invited to be there was me and my wife. Another person went on to lead a data forensics company. So it was interesting how once I let people go, I was clinging to keep them there. I was actually preventing them from living a life that was better for them.
I love that. I think I've enjoyed your the opportunities that you have given us to see not only the success that we see obviously from the book and the systems that you create, but also the lessons that you get from the failures that we all have in business and in life. And I'm wondering, what are some of the failures that you have experienced that maybe we haven't read, maybe in a book, or we haven't listened to, but that were the most impactful for you?
Yeah, sure. Like this week's failures?
No, but
No,
like the thing that was like the most impactful for you, that I think a lot of the things that we do today in business is because we once failed, right? Like that we once did that. What was the one that you still remember? And maybe that you're still like, okay, I do this because of that. Yeah.
So I'll first put a little frame around this. We have in our office a big sign that says the No Bro Show. And so there's experts or authorities out there that are very bro-y and positioned around like, I'm successful, you're not, therefore you suck, but follow me and you'll make it. Scale, you piece of crap. I just cannot stand that. Kind of reminds me of my high school gym teacher, so that's part of it. That's part of the issue. But also, it's the realization that I kind of behave like that. So in one business, one failure I haven't talked about, my first company, I had brought on, I had 2 business partners, equity owners in the business. And I was all about scale, grow, all about acquisition and maybe having the Lear jet that I rent for an hour and film like I own it, but I look like I own it. My Lambo, man. Like I was starting to behave like that. And just had a screaming match, just one, because the business was it was struggling, it was dying. We couldn't pay payroll. And just scream at these guys like, you just don't get it, you're losers, Yeah, real dick. Threw a coffee mug across the wall, hit smash against the wall for effect. And one guy just looked at me and goes, dude, it's not about, his name was Barry, really calm. It's not about that. He goes, we just want to live a comfortable lifestyle and be of service. I'm like, oh. And how right he was. I subsequently apologized to him, and Chris was the other business partner, and said that I was losing my mind, but I needed to discover my mind. Mm-hmm. So that's just one big failure. But what I realized is if I don't reflect on that and change my opinion and grow from it, I'll forever be trapped there. Yeah. I've discovered that failures inevitably are the biggest blessing. They don't feel that way, but they're a blessing when we choose to learn from it. And it forces perhaps the hardest part of entrepreneurship, which is realizing or saying, I was wrong. My opinion was wrong. One example of a failure I discovered recently that I put in a book, I talk about core values or immutable laws. I translated it to immutable laws. It's a value or something that will forever be with us. And I called, we had a retreat, and I called the team together. I said, I want to talk about the immutable laws we have. And I started espousing my values. And my colleagues looked at me and said, Mike, those are your values. They're not necessarily our values. One of my values is no dicks allowed. What I mean by this is I've been a dick. I'm de-dicked. I'm de-dicked, thank you. And I don't allow myself to be a dick to anybody. I love the values up there on the wall. It says that, my interpretation of it. But I won't deal with someone as a dick to me. Mm-hmm. And my team comes up and says, Mike, that's actually bro-y. Like, why don't we say, like, be the Ted Lasso? Isn't that more representative of us? And I realized that I've been believing and teaching that whatever the values are we have ourselves, we need to recruit and build organization around it. It becomes a filter, but we start causing an echo chamber. It's all the people saying the same thing I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It's actually diversity, and I learned this from Adrian, diversity of experience, background, thought, religion, whatever it is, or no religion, like all those things that add or build community. And so I started saying, oh my God, there's not there's immutable laws for individuals or values for individuals, but there's communal value. And the strength is understanding what we want collectively. So the values now that we have on our wall, we call the community values. And it's so much more embracing, so much more open. And it's removed those filters. It's brought in opinions and ideas I would have never had myself.
I love that because I think it's something that we have struggled as well in our business of like, these are our values, and then understanding that, I say struggle, you're just like understanding that not everybody has to be for those values, or those values are things that we share, but what are the values for the company that we want to see? Because at the end of the day, it's a different entity than who we are as well.
Are there certain values that you do have to have between everyone?
There's certain ones maybe that are in such violation of what I believe that I can't see it through, but I do appreciate it. You know, we're in such a polarized country now with political values. And so
Did you see one of our community contracts?
Don't talk politics.
We have to remain politically neutral.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Because in our town, you can go house by house and there's different opinions, different signs.
Yeah.
And so what it causes, I decided to put together just a few weeks ago a neighborhood barbecue. And I have my own political opinions, and I intentionally went and met with people that published their opinions that are different than mine, and just looking for the human. And that was such a difficult practice for me. It's like, holy crap, these are like really nice people and really good people. And they probably have just as strong opinions about my political views as I do of theirs. And I wonder if they think I'm a horrible person just because of a statement. And that's not the reality. They're beautiful people. It's like, wow, we have a great community. And so I try to practice, but it's hard to. In my own team is when someone has a different opinion or something unexpected, if there's a little shock value in the beginning, that means I'm learning and not to resist it. And it's effing hard. It's really hard. But there's strength in that. So as much as I can, I try to invite in actually opposite opinions to mine just to help me expand my own. Not good at it, not great at it, but I'm deliberate at it.
I think the key too is like getting to know people as people without those labels first, right? Like we just had like 2 hurricanes back to back in Florida. And it was like as hard of a time as that is as a community, it also really brings people together, right? Because you have this like common enemy, which is
Nature.
the natural disaster of like literally people have no homes. They need help. They need food. They need some like elderly people who need help like cleaning out their flooded homes. They need somewhere to live. They need water, right? And so at that point, like no one cares who you're voting for, right? Like we're just all there to collectively support and help each other. And that is when you get to actually know people. And so it's like, I don't want to know your values just because of your label, right? I want to know your values because I get to know you as a person. And I think that's much easier to then be more open-minded of like, oh, this person is someone that shares these values. We're just coming about it in a different way, maybe. And I wouldn't have been open to that if I was like just looking at the list of like, here's what they said their values are, but those are maybe different than mine. But like, how do you operate, right? Because you, like Mike was saying before, like you could say I'm all these things, but are you all of those things?
Yeah, the actions are the ones that are gonna really
is what really matters. And so I think, we won't talk politics, but I think it does us like a really big disservice when we put the label on ourselves and each other, right? Because then we're not getting to know each other, and we actually probably have a lot more common ground than we think.
I love the failure story, so I want to hear your failure as well. You didn't get out of that. Mike's not the only one that screwed it up, so I want to hear your weak point.
My weak point.
And maybe recent history or something?
like yesterday,
like this year,
today,
like this year. I mean, I've had a really rough year personally, and so I think that like I'm always learning on like how to be a better leader for our team. I think that it's hard to like lead a team, especially when you're going through a lot of personal stuff, and so I don't think that I've always done that well or perfectly. So there's been times when I wish I would have shown up differently or wish I would have, done something different. I can't even think of like I can think of a specific circumstance even last week where like I apparently looked like I had a resting bitch face on, a call, and my other team member like was like, "Are you mad at so and so?" Like after the call, and I was like, "No." Should I be? Like, I'm not. And they were like, "Well, you should probably go and say something to them because it seemed like you were." And, so I think there's just been a lot of times over the years when I'm like, "Oh man, like you got to do better." I always think that like as the leader, there's this quote about like, you have to be the thermostat and not the thermometer.
Right.
And so like, I set the temperature for the team, like I set the temperature for this event, right? Like if I come in here and I'm like, womp womp, then that's the temperature everyone's reading, right? As a leader. And so sometimes as a leader, you don't get the luxury of feeling how you're feeling, to be honest. And that's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to like, I've learned from a lot of those downfalls of like, oh, I'm not being the thermostat that I want to be right now, right? And everyone else is feeding off of that. Like they're taking the temperature in the room. And so just really trying to continue to like be a better thermostat for everybody. But we're humans too. And so there's a balance of like, I want you to know me as a person, and I want you to know that like I'm the stability here. And so I think I'm probably personally going through that right now because I've had like a lot of like personal things going on, and I'm still trying to support a business. I'm still trying to pay payroll. I'm still trying to serve clients. And as leaders, we know that like it's a lot sometimes, so just day by day.
I also think like these are the opportunities where the grace that you have given to your team members in their own scenarios and their own difficulties comes back, right? So like this is a time where like your team gets to show you, reciprocate that. And so like as leaders, I think we're in that constant of like giving what we want to receive now, but giving it to a point, planting the seeds so that way we're building this culture of, hey, I'm not always going to be up here in levels of energy or like decision making or whatnot. But when I'm not there, I need somebody else to step up their game,
Sometimes it's hard to receive that though, as a leader.
Oh, yeah, I'm terrible
you
at
still
that.
want to be the leader. Oh, I still need to be here for you after you. Oh, it's not, you don't need to be there for me. Right. And so,
I mean, that's hard. I feel like as a leader, those are the skill sets that we have to continue to practice. And they're so undervalued, underrated because you don't know you need them until you're kind of in it. Right. And it's not that sexy, I think, online to be like, grow your leaderships, get like practice more restraint, right? Like be more vulnerable. It's like,
that was going to be my Facebook post
yeah,
today,
it's like
but
sales,
it's not now.
scale, marketing. Like that's what people want to buy. But as you build a team and as you start to realize your own
think it's
weaknesses,
kumbaya. I'm like, when you're in business, you realize that like, kumbaya is really what gets you, to like the other point.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what I really need is like, if this is the person that this team needs, then like, how do I bridge the gap from where I am to becoming that person? And that's not always easy, but.
Yeah.
What does success look like to you guys? Final question here. What is success individually, I think?
And together. Well, if you ask my Instagram followers, it's don't ask them because I get a lot of hate. If I talk about success, they're like, why do you think you're so successful? I'm like, well, let me tell you. Success is a personal definition, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to tell you I'm successful because I meet my criteria of success, not because I've made a lot of money or like done something specific. But for me, it's being able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, who I want to do it with, and how I want to do it. Like having the creative freedom, the financial freedom, the personal freedom to do things with my kids when I want to, being able, like if they have a sick day, I don't have to stress, right? Like I can take off with them. I know my team and I know my team has got it under control. I know my clients are being served. Like I think that success for me is being able to make a really big impact without anything really relying too heavily on me. Because the impact that I want to make in the world is bigger than just me for sure. So, not having to stress about money and being able to spend time with the people that I love and having a life outside of my business. Like, I feel like success is being able to give generously and do the things that we, like the impact that we want our business to have, which for me is all about kind of the same personal success that I have is that clockwork mindset of, as entrepreneurs, like, you deserve to have a life too outside of your business. And so helping entrepreneurs and team members like really improve the quality of their life. And I have a long way to go to like make the impact that I want to make, but I still feel today that like my personal life and like the team that I've built, like that I am successful in terms of I have my basic needs met. I can do the things that I want to do. And mostly I can make the decisions on a day-to-day of like how I want to spend my time. And that feels really good. So
Lambo. Jet. So I know some folks in this room. I met Amy recently, and Linda's here, and Melissa. Well, it's good to see so many friends. And I know you all to different degrees, and you're just good people. Good people. What I think success is that the good folks win. And I am tired of seeing Lambo Boy being perceived as a definition of success. I used to believe that we had a responsibility to beat the competition, and I reframed it. We have a responsibility to squeeze out the misguided competition. Goodness, you have to be so good at what you do. You have to be putting so much good in the world. It just squeezes out the alternatives. It's not about beating anyone. It's just like, oh. And so there's this mentality in your business, in your space, Amy, in yours, in ours, that you can't be good and caring and loving of your customers and your employees and stuff. And it has to be winner takes all. There's a belief from our customers that wins. Recently, a business came out, and I'm going to pick on it, in the accounting space called Tax Hive. It was a Shark Tank show, and this guy, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, is up there, and he's like, I've invested in Tax Hive, and therefore it's the best company. And people are buying from it, and it looks like pure crap. It's pure hype, and it looks like pure crap. I don't think it's founded for good reasons. I don't think it's founded to serve its customers as much as a quick marketing win. And I know so many bookkeepers and accountants that are so superior to what's offering, but will never be discovered because they aren't making the effort to get discovered. I think the good people are taking the feeling like, oh, if I put myself out there, I'm not being good. Now I'm being braggadocious. God darn it, we got to be braggadocious. You're doing such important, healthy, good, important things. And if you're not bragging about it, Kevin O'Leary is. And I'm not even saying he's a bad person. I'm just saying that mentality is bad. So to me, success is when we all step up and just talk proudly about loving on our customers and our colleagues and so forth. And that's what I want to do. The other definition for my personal success, this sounds weird and it's convoluted because I was trying to think deeply about this, is I know at the end of our lives, my life, we will really be forgotten. Maybe not next generation, but the generation after. If we go back 3 or 4 generations, who knows? There's like 4 or 5 names that circulate around, but everyone else has lost to history. So that can be a bad thought, or it could be a beautiful thought that we have this one moment to play all out because I will be forgotten. And so,
did you see how they looked at you when you walked in the room this morning?
That group. Yeah. And so, yeah, never. So I'm such an idiot. I come in the room, I didn't know who our group was. So the first group I see, I'm like, hey, we're going to rock it out today. And they're like, okay, camp counselor. It was a totally different group.
What a humbling moment that was, right?
It was like a trip. It was an AA meeting or something. I'm like, let's party. Let's party. Yeah. Let's party on. So it was, I totally screwed that up. But I realized like, I got to show up and play all out because it's all coming to an end and no one's going to remember. And that's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. So to me, that success is, am I playing all out in every moment?
Well, I just want to congratulate you guys and thank y'all. I mean, entrepreneurship is one of those things that is it can be the worst thing in the world. It can hurt your marriage, hurt your kids, it can be so painful, or it can be, as you guys have started, so beautiful. And it's individuals like you guys that I think are making a huge impact on the difference between how many end up in each of those buckets. And I know with this group, obviously, we wouldn't be here if you guys aren't already making that impact. And so I appreciate you guys, and I'm so grateful and excited to what books you're going to come out in the near future.
Yeah, I'm
And
working
keep,
on one now.
I was like, you got a
if you guys
teaser?
could just keep learning as much as
You're
possible,
writing
it
a
would help us
personal
out.
finance.
So,
Yeah, so the quick teaser is I'm working on a personal finance book, and I found entrepreneurial success. Now, that Profit First has about 1.3 million books in circulation. It's amazing. It's an honor, and it's amazing, and it's in so many countries. I've also had the privilege of talking to so many entrepreneurs, and what was shocking to me is how many entrepreneurs have become successful in their business, meaning profitable in their business and healthy, but not figured it out at home and are leeching off the business,
yes,
and it's still collapsing. So there's got to be this duality, and that's what I'm working on.
I love it. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. Thank you.